this Ramadan.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Our next guest on Salam Media here is Fayruz Mohamed, from the first female national chairperson of the National Zakah Fund. I think SANZAF is a name we all grew up with. It's a name that's been around for many, many years. I remember years ago, I'm talking about ages ago, driving through Fordsburg where the SANZAF offices used to be, and there were constantly people out there. It was a constant hub, especially during Ramadan, with people stopping, getting off, having their quick chats, going in, sorting out all your zakah needs. It was really a hub and a point for many of us growing up, and a name that is just always at the back of your head. Fayruz, assalamu alaikum and welcome to Salam Media.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Zahira. Jazakallah for having me this morning. And maybe just to say, we still have our offices at Fordsburg, so they can still come around.
I always remember what an exciting time it was. Almost every weekend, the office doors were always open with the whole buzz of Fordsburg and people just coming in and out of the offices on a consistent basis. But from those days when I remember it, it has grown astronomically to where it is currently.
Alhamdulillah, yes, absolutely. It's in fact, this year we're commemorating our 50th anniversary.
Wow,
And obviously, commemorating 5 decades of unwavering dedication to serving humanity, alhamdulillah. And that obviously wouldn't have been able to be possible without the support of our donors and our volunteers, etc. So alhamdulillah. And we say well done to the SANZAF team and to everybody that supports the organization.
Alhamdulillah. Fayruz, I know that there's been a strong drive from the SANZAF position to actually go out and teach people about zakah. I know that there's been a number of zakah workshops. I've seen it all over. It's almost been a nationwide campaign. Tell us a little bit more about this.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yes, it actually has been a nationwide campaign, and we actually start doing it about a month before Ramadan. So our CEO, Yasmina Franca, and myself, and this is where we take a very much more focused approach also to our women folk, because we find that there's a lack of education, well, generally to the ummah. But we find that a lot of women in today's circumstances, they have attained wealth in their own right. And sometimes they don't realize, that there's certain wealth that you pay on, even though you may have received it as dowry, for example, that you actually need to, pay zakah and purify that wealth as well. So about a month before Ramadan, we do a national campaign and we go around the country, doing the advocacy, but more so also during the month in Ramadan, where there's a lot of focus on just educating, the wider South African community, Muslim community, where we have, zakah seminars on weekends, during the week, etc. And we're actually having one this weekend just for women as well. So always trying to, educate the ummah on this very important, but also unfortunately this very neglected pillar of Islam. And we've tried to make things simpler by, we also just launched our zakah calculator, which is actually, I must say, a very well comprehensive calculator that guides individuals on how to calculate the zakah. It has all the possible, assets that you may have that you'd need to pay zakah on. It updates the nisab for you every day. And then we also offer, personal and very confidential zakah consultancy. So if you want that one-on-one, assistance, we offer that as well, whether it's telephonically, whether it's on a one-on-one, we avail ourselves, or you can just call our offices. We have a function on our website that also says, ask Molana. So if you don't want to call anybody, you can use that feature as well. And we have our app as well. So there are various ways on, assisting individuals in calculating zakah. So if anybody says in today's world that, I didn't know how to calculate my zakah, then I don't know, because we really try very, very hard and make sure that, we educate the ummah on zakah, because we don't just, collect and distribute zakah. It is our mandate as well to ensure that we educate the community on zakah, because that's one thing you do not want, Sister Zahira, is to underpay your zakah. You do not want, that debt still on you on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah, that you haven't, distributed your zakah either correctly to the individuals who have been ordained by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Tawbah, verse 60, who can only receive zakah. And then obviously you also want to make sure that part of that act of ibadah is the correct calculation, because you need to make sure that you calculated zakah on all the zakatable wealth that you have, not just on the ones that you assume, and you kind of just make an assumption. You say, more or less my zakah is this amount. I don't think anybody should go with that approach. They should rather do the calculation and make sure that they discharge of that correctly. And we always have people have this misconception that they can only pay zakah in the month of Ramadan. That's obviously not the case. We do encourage you to pay zakah in the month of Ramadan as an advance payment, because we want to, attain all the multiple rewards this month has. So we do encourage you to pay, your zakah in the month of Ramadan, but it doesn't mean that that is your zakah calculation date. And I think that's when people get confused to say, but I have paid in Ramadan. And so we just make sure that when they come to these zakah seminars, they can educate themselves as to how you pay zakah, when you pay zakah, and to whom you're allowed to pay your zakah to ensure that they discharge their zakah correctly.
I think that is such a wonderful tool to actually have freely available. And I'm assuming it's freely available in terms of the Zakah calculator and the Zakah assistance, because
Absolutely, everything's free. There's zakah consultancy sessions are free as well. So,
amazing,
alhamdulillah.
absolutely amazing. Because I often find that, so many times women absolve themselves of that responsibility, saying, my dad will do it, or my husband will do it, or my son will do it, or some male figure in their life will sort out their zakah. And with so many women now working in certain positions, earning their own income, or actually responsible for, like you said, whether it's inheritance or dowries or whatever it is, we have to understand that zakah is an individual thing, and every single person is responsible for their zakah. I think that is an amazing initiative to have been made available for the community, because many of us find it overwhelming. You don't even know where to start. Where are we able to find this, Fayruz?
Well, in terms of when you're able to find the assistance, or when we look
Yes.
at the education, and you're absolutely correct. When we look at zakah, like salah, it is an individual responsibility. You cannot say where you're feeling a bit lethargic today and you ask your husband, can you perform, my salah for me
Mm,
today? That zakah works in exactly the same way, in that it is an individual responsibility. However, this is the one act of ibadah where you can actually ask someone. So if you, for example, many times we have joint accounts, for example, and the husband takes responsibility of paying the zakah, let's say, but it still becomes your responsibility to ask the husband, have you done the calculation? Have you paid my zakah? Because you cannot not have any responsibility or accountability towards zakah, because it is ultimately your responsibility. Because if your husband decides not to pay do the calculation and pay the zakah, then ultimately it's still your responsibility. You will be held accountable for not checking up and making sure that it was done. So as women, you're absolutely correct. We earn wealth, and we have wealth in our own right, and we need to go and educate ourselves to make sure that that zakah is discharged correctly. And like I said, you can find the calculator on our website. We've got, if you have an Android or an Apple, you'll find it. If you download it on the Google playlist as well as on the Apple playlist, you can find it as called My Zakah app. And then the function of the Osmolina is on our website as well. So there are different, and obviously if you want to have access to our offices, the information's on our website as well. And generally, if you have one of the zakah consultants, if you want to specifically speak to myself or Molana or Yasmina or any one of us, generally they'll ask us first, because our numbers are obviously not publicly known. But we have no problem if you want to contact us. We'll be happily be able to assist you, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. Firouz, I have to ask this because I'd be remiss not to. With you at the head of the SANZAF, we've got Yasmina there as well. There's definitely a feminine touch now being added to a generally male predominated organization industry with NPOs. How has that been received? Because like even with this outlook of the education of making things accessible, there's been a much more softer approach and a more gentler approach of reaching many women in communities all around.
Absolutely, and I think it's something that they can relate to. Alhamdulillah, I must say, you've asked, how it has been received, and I'm actually serving my second term
Mashallah.
as the SANZAF National Chair. Alhamdulillah, and my term actually ends end of the year, around about in October. So then we'll rotate again, because generally we try and just have a chair stand not more than 2 terms. Although I don't think, as far as I can recall, any chair standing more than 1 term. So I think as soon as they realize not just the responsibility, but the burden that comes, with being able to lead an organization of this magnitude, that they say, okay, no, one term's enough, and they want to move on. But alhamdulillah, I've been able to, still lead the organization for a second term. And like you say, we have a female in the operations as well. We actually have a female in the national treasury position as well. So there are a lot of
Wow.
female heads as part of making sure that things are run effectively, and not that, the men couldn't do the job properly. I think as women, we can multitask, because Yasmina is a full-time employed individual. However, anybody from an executive level up, like myself, we do this on a voluntary basis. We provide our skills to the organization, at times that we don't get reimbursed for, alhamdulillah. So I think the fact that the organization is being led by a female isn't something that they decided they want to be the first to be progressive in that sense. I think if I look at even where I come from, I've been involved with the organization, alhamdulillah, for 26 years. So I used to be a volunteer, just doing the accounting work. Then I became the regional treasurer of Western Cape. Then I became the national treasurer for about 6-7 years. Then I became the national first deputy. So it was alhamdulillah, a progression in my career within SANZAF, which I never thought would happen, because we don't generally find females leading organizations in this kind of arena
Yeah.
and industry anywhere in the country. So, but it was something that the trustees felt that at the time, who's the best person to lead the organization. And alhamdulillah, they put their trust and confidence in me. And then we put our trust and confidence in Yasmina as the CEO. And alhamdulillah, with their support, with the trustee support, the organization has done well, alhamdulillah. Still much improvement. I think there's still a lot we can do to improve. But I think when we have individuals supporting each other and making sure that we're on the right track, making sure we stick to our mandate and not be all over the place, because not everybody can do everything. And we try and, stick to our mandate, as in we do zakah, we collect, distribute, educate, and ensure that we administer this third pillar of Islam in the most effective and efficient way.
Absolutely. And I
So,
think you guys have done
alhamdulillah,
that
it's
in such a
been good.
yeah. I think you've done that in a remarkable way, because the distribution of zakah has not just been handouts. A lot of it has been skills development and skills driven. And I've seen many of the programs and participated in many of the programs in the Johannesburg offices. And that for me has been remarkable, because it's about changing lives of individuals to put them onto their own feet again. Tell us, what do you see about the way forward for SANZAF under your reign and Yasmina's?
So absolutely. SANZAF's approach is, we understand that, there'll always be some element of welfare, in that you cannot obviously educate somebody if their basic needs are not met. So there will always be an element of welfare. But to understand the fundamental maqasid of zakah is, like you just indicated, we need to transform that individual so that they, can be removed from that condition of poverty, that condition of need, so that they can become self-sufficient. And what we see, and unfortunately during COVID, and the circumstances led to that, where our approach changed, because what was needed at the time was very much welfare. I mean, there was no way we're educating people, and people were literally starving. So we had to strategically change our approach during COVID, but now we're moving back to our approach of having a 40-60 approach. 40 in that serving welfare, and 60% of our distribution goes towards development, upskilling individuals, so that they can ultimately become self-sufficient and ultimately become zakah payers, because that, I think, would be an objective of any distribution, in that you don't want to perpetually want them to come out for a
Mm.
handout, because that's not, what the objective of giving is. It is to ensure that they become self-sufficient. So that is our intention as well, in terms of the approach going forward. But I also think, when we look at the generation today, they are very much digitally inclined. So ensuring that we use IT as an enabler to make the payment of zakah more efficient and more effective, so that they, the individuals who not want to leave their home to want to make a payment, they don't want to leave their home literally to do much. So where we would make it simpler and easier for them, as well as, for females, wherever we go in terms of getting our groceries, etc., we make it quite accessible for them. So we have many pop-up, fitra collection points, for example, where we try and make it easier for the donor to ensure that they need to pay their fitra, as soon as possible. so that we can ensure that we plan a distribution, for the day of Eid. And alhamdulillah, our target for the distribution this year is 40,000 hampers nationally. So please, I would appeal to all the individuals that if they're going to pay, or when they need to pay the fitra, that they pay it as soon as possible and not on the very last minute. We do keep our offices open, up until the very day before Eid, but we try and, appeal to the community to pay the fitra as soon as possible, inshallah.
Shukran. I think that's a very valid and important point, because many of us think that the fitra just needs to be paid the night before or just the morning before you're done with fajr and you're rushing off, and then you end up having to pay it. It's actually better to pay it earlier, so that organizations like SANZAF are able to do the work effectively, because they're able to prepare for what needs to be done, so that on the day of Eid, your fitra is already distributed. It's not just still being counted and added in. It's already being distributed. Fayruz, you've made it very easy for us to be able to access these points. Like you said, it's available digitally. It's available in the locations that we still remember very fondly in our childhood days growing up. I remember our Uncle Tara, may Allah grant him Jannatul Firdaus, always standing outside those offices, welcoming families through to come and have a chat to him over the weekends. You are doing a sterling job, and I absolutely love the outlook that it's been going out with in terms of the education that's also coming in. Not just let's get the work done, it's about educating you why you need to be able to give these distributions to ensure effective work is getting done. That's Fayruz Mohamed, National Chairperson of the SANZAF National Zakah Fund. We thank you so much for joining us on air today. And as Fayruz mentioned, they are available all over on a number of numerous networks and locations. Give them a shout, look into what they do. They're an organization that has been around for many, many years, through most of our childhood, many of our listeners and viewers' childhood. And I think we'll look at it very fondly and under great care of Fayruz and Yasmin. Shukran for joining us on air, Fayruz. Assalamu alaikum. We wish you a very blessed Ramadan.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan, Sisters Zahira, and best of the last 15 days soon of Ramadan, inshallah. May Allah accept all
Ameen.
your du'as, all your ibadat, all your sacrifices, and may He grant us to see a blessed Eid, inshallah. Wassalamu
Ameen.
alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam. Fayruz Mohamed will be taking a very quick ad break and then continuing with the program. Stay tuned.